welcome to the latest episode of the Skiffy and Fanny Shows at the Movies.
What happens when you ghost your husband?
What does happen?
When you ghost your husband, he hides in the wall and
Oh, has nice gloves.
That's the normal
gaslights
thing.
You.
Oh, he gaslights you. Yeah, there's probably a lot of that. Well, I'm Shaun.
I'm Daniel.
I'm DanDan.
And on today's show, we're discussing the 1963 Italian Gothic horror Lo Spettro, The Ghost in English, directed by Riccardo Freda under the pseudonym of Robert Hampton. The film stars Barbara Steele, Peter Baldwin, Elio Jota as Leonard G. Elliott, what is these names, and Harriet White Medin. The screenplay is by Oreste Biancoli, who went by, I guess, Robert Davidson, with cinematography by Raphael Masciocchi as Donald Green. Dude, these are like the whitest names they could have come up with. Editing by Ornella Micheli as Donna Christie, with a musical score by Francesca Damaschi as Frank Wallace, though the score was once thought to be by Franco Manino. So, there you go.
Yeah, there's, to the best of our knowledge, those are the names of the people involved. There's somebody in the credits that was just put in there because it was required by the sort of like Italian
government.
Basically, the Italian union required them to have like somebody from the union in the film. And so they just put the name there, and maybe they're like a background character in a scene, but they also gave them like the English name. So who knows? And
the original, like from what I read, the original article said that the musician, the guy who did the score, when the pseudonym that they used in English, they pushed back to the wrong person. So up until the new release or whatever, the Italian guy was the wrong Italian guy.
Yeah, they had the wrong person responsible for the score, apparently.
Wow.
Did they, before we get into that, just real quick, did they do those names just so it would be more American friendly?
I assume so.
We can get into that sort of like in the history of where this place is historically in the horror genre, specifically of Italian horror. So yeah, we can go into that at some point. So Severin graciously sent me for us to discuss a copy of their recent 4-disc limited edition 4K ultra high definition restoration of The Ghost from a thought lost original camera negative of Lo Spettro. And this restoration actually premiered last year at the Venice International Film Festival, where the head of Severin and then also Barbara Steele were in attendance. And then after that, they went to Paris for L'Étrange Festival in Paris, of a festival, I assume, for like horror exploitation kind of genre, and a retrospective that the French were doing also on the films of Freda, which are important within sort of the history of horror and giallo. And so Severin sent this to me, but I don't think they realized that actually there's like more of us and we don't live in the same physical space. And so I was lucky and got to watch the actually really beautiful edition of this, whereas the others had to watch the really crappy version that's available for free on Tubi. So anybody can go and watch the Tubi version to get the essentials of the movie, but to really see it in its intended glory, this is the way to go. This release, has the film both in English dubbed and Italian dubbed soundtracks with separate English subtitles. It also includes the 2019 feature documentary film, Executioners, Masks, Secrets, Italian Horror of the 1960s. And so I also watched that. It's a really good documentary film to, again, kind of place this work in context of Italian horror of that decade and what that went on to become thereafter with like the films of Dario Argento. and other directors, and how that also influenced, of course, America to influence things like Wes Craven, Tobe Hooper, etc. So that documentary is directed by Steve Dellacasa. There's also, on the main Blu-ray disc, there is an audio commentary with Kat Ellinger, who's author of Daughters of Darkness. There are 3 interview features, including an extended Barbara Steele interview that's played as an audio track over the film. There's a video essay by Dr. Alexander Heller Nichols, author of 1,000 Women in Horror. Another video essay by Tim Lucas, who is the author of Mario Bava, All the Colors of the Dark. And so Mario Bava, the Italian director, was actually a cameraman for some of Riccardo Freda's movies, and the two actually worked together on lots of projects, including Bava finishing directing some of Riccardo Freda's films as well. And then finally, it has a bonus compilation CD actually on it of the music of Francesco Damasi and other features as well. But those are sort of the main ones. So it's really packed to the gills.
Very cool. Before we get into discussion of the movie, a reminder to our listeners to please share your questions and comments with us at skiffyandfanty.com listener suggestions. If you aren't already, join us on Twitch for Shaun's Alphabet streams every Friday at 7 p.m. Central to be part of our interactive live streaming show format. Finally, be sure to review and spread the word about our show. Help support us through our Patreon and be part of our Torture Cinema polls, live watches, or other special patron-only events that happen on Discord.
All right. Daniel, what's this movie about?
So The Ghost is set in 1910 Scotland. It's actually it was originally intended to be a sequel to Freda's previous film, The Awful Dr. Hitchcock, but it morphed over time and is in some way, as lots of the features point out, kind of an inverse of that film. Though features many of the same kind of plot and stylistic elements to it. So it's set in 1910 Scotland, and the Dr. Hitchcock in this is named Dr. John Hitchcock, if I remember correctly, completely unrelated to the Dr. Hitchcock from Freda's earlier film by the time this was made. And at this point, Dr. Hitchcock... the movie begins with basically a spiritualist session where they are channeling a spirit through the medium of the maid for the household. And that maid, whose name I'm blanking on right now, maybe somebody else can look it up, is sort of channeling the spirit of someone speaking in Sanskrit. But then you find out after this sort of spiritualist meeting that kind of sets up the milieu that we are presently in the time period. We find out that Dr. Hitchcock is past the prime of his life, which has been spent studying the mysteries of the world, medical and esoteric, like astral projection and things like that, by traveling through different parts of the world. And he's now basically stuck in his manor house in Scotland, paralyzed with an illness. And sort of paradoxically, the treatment that he is under for this, being essentially confined to a wheelchair, unable to move his lower body, is he is given doses of a poison, curare, that causes paralysis, but given doses of that followed by rapid antidote to that poison to kind of boost his movement. So it's this weird paradoxical thing, whereas the poison that's actually harming him is also being used to try to cure him of the disease he has, which plays into the themes of the movie that pretty much from beginning to end deals with the dichotomies between life and death. And a lot of the film still deals with inverting the ideas of life and death. And so here we have a poison, something of death also is being used to give life. So he's under the care of a younger doctor who is a friend and colleague that's administering this to him. But we soon find out that young doctor is having an affair with Dr. Hitchcock's wife, Margaret, played by Barbara Steele. Barbara Steele is sort of no longer in love with old Dr. Hitchcock. She's tired of caring for him and craves life and vitality. And so she's entered into this affair with the younger doctor. And we find out that Dr. Hitchcock really knows that this is going on and is basically setting them up in a trap. And the two of them, the two younger people then, Margaret and the younger doctor, Margaret convinces the younger doctor to basically poison Dr. Hitchcock and not give him the antidote. And so he reacts to the poison. They have a funeral. They bury him. And they then proceed and expect to inherit his money, or at least some portion of his estate, and move on. But he doesn't really go away because they become haunted effectively by his ghost, by the memory and even physical reminders, like a music box, like the wheelchair moving on its own. Different things happen to make them think that his spirit continues to now haunt them and try to get revenge. And that leads to them basically turning on each other, not trusting one another. The housemaid seems to be possibly instigating this further. So I don't know how far we want to get into spoilers, but there is a twist ending that will be familiar to anyone who has seen some of the movies that this is ultimately based on. And so one would be this setup of this movie, at least the initial stages, and like the previous movie of Freda, is pretty much Hitchcock's Rebecca. In terms of the characters, the woman coming in, particularly the previous film, this one maybe less so. But this is very strongly inspired by Clouzot's Les Diaboliques, which is a famous French horror thriller movie, and basically has the same plot and this similar, to my knowledge, twist ending. This is basically a Gothic rendition of Clouzot's film. So it's heavy on the Gothic elements and very heavy on life-death dichotomies and inverting those concepts, those traditional concepts of life and death.
Shaun and I might have ruined the twist talking about my tagline.
Well, yeah, I mean, we usually don't do spoiler walls or anything for particularly older movies like this, so...
Yeah, I mean, have had 60-something years to have seen this.
Yeah.
So
it turns out the husband's not actually dead. He faked his death to trap the young lovers and sets it up so that they turn on each other. Barbara Steele kills her lover with a razor blade because she thinks he's actually stealing the money that and keeping it from her and has betrayed her when he is not. And the housemaid helps in basically that setup. Dr. Hitchcock reveals himself. Dr. Hitchcock then kills his accomplice, the maid, so that no witnesses are left. And he proceeds to then give the curare poison to Barbara Steele as punishment for her adultery, to basically inflict her with the death condition. So we have, again, a complete inversion. The end of the movie is an inverse to the beginning. He is now completely mobile and the one with life and freedom and movement. She is the one of death, confined. But the ultimate twist then is that she prepared a glass of gin with poison in it to kill herself because she felt guilty about having killed her young lover who actually didn't betray her. And she basically chickens out of killing herself, but Dr. Hitchcock doesn't realize that the gin that is sitting there is actually poison, and he likey the gin. And so he goes and drinks the gin that has the poison in it. And so basically the movie ends with sort of an epilogue of the local canon or priest talking about how, like, the devil does exist and evil people get what's coming to them. So it has a very traditional sort of ending that most of the characters in this movie are horrible, horrible people. They all turn on each other and they all end up getting punished. And in some ways, this whole movie can kind of be seen as they're all in their own personal hell, turning on each other as well.
And
sure.
He was, I mean, to be fair, the lover was going to ditch out on her because she was going to be broke. I mean, when he couldn't find the money, he's like, yeah, I'm peacing out. So she probably would have been upset either way.
And he was frustrated with her, like, her rising calls for him to do things that he never felt really comfortable doing, which is kind of he's a weak character, which is really common for Italian horror movies of that era. Those young lovers were all very weak-willed in that he could have just said, like, no, I'm not going to kill your husband. But he kind of like wishy-washy does it, but then never really wanted to do it or claims he didn't want to. And so feels bad about it. But dude, you did it, right? Like, just deal with the fact that you actually did do it. Don't blame her for your actions.
And he does. Like, he tries to fully blame her for everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then he gets razor bladed. But
yeah,
I mean, that could be a
which is a great scene.
Response. Yeah.
Very psycho type scene there.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
You said the set you have has more scenes?
No, not more scenes necessarily. I think it's just very cleaned up. It has all the like documentaries, commentaries, things like that.
Oh, yeah. Because I was going to say, I'll be honest, I didn't realize I must have missed where she broke the music box, because until she mentions it's the sound of the music box I broke, like, I just thought she hears the music box. You know what I mean? I must have missed it.
Yeah, she smashed it into pieces at one point.
Okay.
Shaun looks like he's about to completely disagree.
I'm gonna poo-poo on some parades here. I think part of the effect of we didn't watch this like Daniel on the like beautiful Severin remaster, which I'm sure has much better visuals. The visual I saw was the 2B edition, and that is I think it'd be fair to say, I haven't actually seen the Severin, but I assume the Severin is far superior in terms of visual quality. And the result is that the version that's on Tubi is very dark, at times a little grainy, in a kind of bad way. And some of that like very particular gothic scenery internally in the house, it ends up losing some of the dynamics and character. It just ends up feeling very, very dark and musty. And so that affected how much I could get invested in the story. Because to me, I was a little bit bored watching this, to be honest. I found a lot of the plot to be a lot of nothing happening until a lot happens all very quickly. And I because I didn't have anything else to grasp onto, it forced me to kind of think a lot about the plot that we're given. And I just kind of didn't care about these characters, and they're like, we murdered him. Like, oh no, we can't let anybody know that we're lovers. Blah blah blah. Like, I kind of was like, I don't care about you and your stuff, and there isn't enough of the sort of ghost element in the story to sort of make all that very interesting, because it's little moments of things where like his wheelchair goes like flying down the stairs, and there's like sounds that they hear. It's very gothic, I suppose, in the structure, but I think the gothic requires that visual to really settle the tone of what you're experiencing. And to me, it was just so muted in terms of the quality of what I was seeing that I couldn't feel the tone in the sort of colors and the set design, etc. The score does a good job, I think, of trying to bring some of that in. The score is really quite good. And it's just sort of a reminder that like a film is not just one thing. It is all of these things working together. And if one of them is absent, it sort of affects how you experience the rest of it. And I think in this case, the visuals are a lot more important than the plot maybe gives on. And you just don't see them in the Tubi edition, which is probably the best argument for the Severin edition you can ever have, which is the film is dramatically better.
It is. I'll send this to you just so that you can see sort of the difference.
Okay.
But I mean, that's totally fair. I'll respond to that, but I want to give DanDan a chance to comment.
Sure.
I mean, I'll agree that, because I also watched the Tubi edition, and every once in a while there'd be like that white, the film has been damaged stuff that would come across the screen. There were some scenes that were dark enough that they're like light blue boxes with some green in the background, and that's all I can really see. So there was some of that. And it did kind of detract a little bit for me, but I also enjoyed the film overall. My one thing, I think you hit on my main complaint about the film is that, I mean, it takes 40 minutes for him to die. All of that build up, all of that stuff. And I'm like, well, when does the ghost shit happen? Like, when does all this stuff start? And then, like you said, like about 40 minutes in, when it's like 50 minutes left, then it finally does something. And then everything starts to happen. And then it happens, like the last half is very crammed together. Like it really jumps from creepy scene to creepy scene to creepy scene to creepy scene without much, like they don't have any discussion of what's going on. They don't like explore the blood drip and like, well, there's actual blood, so it can't be just a ghost. Like there's all this stuff that happens that they never like stop and like explore it in any fashion. They never discuss it in any way. Like they just immediately jump into all this crazy shit. And you would think that at some point you would be like, hey man, maybe we should move, or maybe something.
Get the priest in here because Jesus, there's some evil spirits involved.
Yeah. I mean, they have...
The priest seems pretty inept, though.
He's also nosy.
Yeah, and they have everything to do a seance, and they're obviously, like, at least some of them, or at least have access to, like, spiritualists. Like, do something.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with Freda as Bava, but there was a quote in one of the documentary / interviews with a French film critic who said effectively that for Bava, the main character of a Mario Bava film is the image. Image is everything. And that's, Bava is sort of the grandfather of, like, and Barbara Steele in her interview said the same exact thing. Bava was very precise. All he cared about was image and how the camera was moving. And the other thing she said is he really loved animals, and he cared about animals, and he cared more about the horses and dogs and the cats than he did about the actors. And he called the actors beasts. A lot like Hitchcock did, and how Hitchcock treated actors. And so I think that was sort of like, I think Freda was probably similar. Freda was much more volatile from what I gather than Bava was. Not quite as artistic, but image was hugely important to these. And the movie begins with sort of, in the seance, it has this repeating appearance of the skull that sort of symbolizes death, that's very near Hitchcock. And then in the portrait of Hitchcock that's in the room, there's that skull. But then the shots are kind of shot from slightly underneath them. So it seems like everything in this manor house is just like a pressing down on the people that live here. If you look at what's around adorning the walls, there's like all these, for lack of a term, I'll say like kitsch or tchotchkes. They're very like medieval type tchotchkes. Like weapons and shields from probably his travels to Africa, and armor and things like that. So it's this hodgepodge of stuff. It's very crowded, and it's very, very dark. There's shadows, and above there's just darkness and death just creeping down on everyone. If you can't see that is completely then lost. And like Shaun, you said, when a movie is more than just like one thing, or it's emphasizing maybe visuals over plot, which this movie is a very standard, even though it has twists, there's nothing much to the plot of this movie.
Right.
And like DanDan said, they don't explore into the plot for the sake of plot or for the sake of plot development. It's much more of like a character study and the mood and the ambiance. It's the gothic yearning, all of that kind of stuff. That's a visual thing that would get lost if you're probably just watching it in a subpar version.
Yeah, you lose some of the definition.
I will say though that the darkness, when they went in the crypt, right? Those skulls really popped out. Like there were skulls everywhere in that crypt. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that confused me is why was there an old skull sitting on top of his casket? Like who puts a casket in a fresh casket in a crypt and then puts a skull on it? I mean, it kind of offended me that he just grabs it and throws it. But at the same time, like who like, is there something like, is that like an actual practice?
I don't think so.
Not to my knowledge.
No.
I think it's solely like a horror film or Italian horror film logic in this regard, I guess, of
maybe
right,
just the creepiness and the symbolic nature of it solely.
Yeah, the idea of the skull as being this like very uncomfortable thing that we're supposed to associate with death, and in no way are we meant to associate it with good things, right? You're weird if you have a skull on your counter.
I guess it also, I don't know if this is an intent, but you mentioned it kind of disturbed you how they just casually toss it aside. To some degree, that's the point of that scene, right? They're desecrating his grave. They're going in there because they don't give a shit about him. They don't care about his remains. They want to find the money. They think that because the ghost told them, basically, that that's where the key is to be able to get into the safe, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
The maid.
Right? So,
the first time he goes into the first time they go in the crypt together, the maid had just mentioned that she had seen him put the key in the coat pocket, so they're not even sure the key's there. But the ghost tells her later that it's under, and that's when she goes back. She's super freaking strong, man. Like, she throws that, well, I mean, she struggles, but she throws that casket off. She lifts that stone piece off of it, pulls the box that cuts her and poisons her out on her own that's supposed to be filled with whatever. I mean, it didn't have the gold. And then she like drug a full grown man's body down the stairs and all the way outside. Like, she was supernaturally strong.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Good for her. Everyone's got to have a talent.
I will say though that the lover, Dr. Livingston.
Oh yes.
I will say that character, I don't know if it's just the way the scenes got made but that character didn't give a crap about nothing. Like, he throws that skull and then later on, like, the dog's barking, like, that scene was like over because she's just like, the dog's barking, you need to go stop it. And he just literally steps out the door and like, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Unloads and then comes back in like nothing happened. And I was like, this guy don't care about nothing. Just immediate. It's the fastest dog kill scene I think I've ever seen.
He seems like moderately annoyed that he has to do it and unwilling, but again, completely weak-willed.
Well, but remember, like, how they get to that situation is he's pestered by the wife to end the doctor's life, and it's very clear, like, he doesn't really want to do it. His whole thing is like, he is dying of an illness that's just going to kill him eventually. He's going to die. It's just going to take a while. And her central argument is, well, sometimes cripples stick around a lot longer than you intend. And I guess his view is just like, this will eventually happen, and like, we can bone on the side, so who cares? And her thing is like, I want it over with. But like, once you do that, I think the story very strongly suggests that, like, that is just the slippery slope to increasingly more immoral behavior. And there's almost no turning back. I mean, why would you care about killing a dog? You just killed a man. I mean, the dog, by comparison, it's not even on the same scale of the level of murder you just committed, right? Why worry about desecrating a dead man's grave, right? Because it's just it's a slippery slope to that. And all of the characters go through this to some degree. They all face that. It's just the only characters we really see experience that properly are the wife and the lover. We don't really see the original Doctor actually experience Hitchcock, because he's quote unquote dead for most of the film. And it is interesting that there's another element of this story that I kind of wish that there had been more of, which is this, priest character who, at the very beginning, right, they have this big old seance and there's like someone speaking in Sanskrit and they're doing all of this kind of stuff. And this priest is just like, why are you doing all this stuff? Like, this is, you're like playing with devil stuff here. This is really dangerous. And he like accuses people of potentially having sold their soul, like all of these kinds of things. And
people in town are talking of you practicing the dark arts. Yeah.
And that seems to mostly not be meaningful to the plot. Beyond that, it sort of disappears after the wife sort of admonishes the priest about his accusation that she and the other doctor are lovers, which they are. That mostly he just kind of disappears. And I kind of would love that the film really kind of explore, because the beginning of the film gives us a strong impression that what we're going to experience is going to be supernatural. And so the inclination is to think, there's like a moral lesson here about playing around with devilly stuff and spirits and so on, and that you should stay and be good Christian-like because it's Italy. So, Catholics, you got to stick to that. And that's how you stay on the moral path. And if you fiddle with this, but it turns out that's not the issue at all. The issue is that it's the sort of moral quagmires in their personal relationships. It's the cheating, the infidelity, the desire to killing your spouse, those kinds of elements that are really what drive everybody down the path. And it's not the supernatural that leads us to the twist. It's fake supernatural that gets there, which also is a reminder that all of the seance spiritualist stuff was mostly fakery too. So I don't know if the film is aware of that, but that is clearly there. And it just kind of would be nice that the thing at the end was not just the priest saying, like, told you so, but actually like, oh, wow, it turns out, like, if you really participate and you think that you're part of all of this stuff and you're not willing to stay in this very clean world, here is where you end up. You end up in this. You end up in creepy menage a trois, the murder triangles, and pretending to be a ghost in the walls to torture your wife, which are all really horrific things. And his whole thing is just, I told you so.
I was wondering if that I told you so was added in to be able to sell in America, because wasn't the Hays Code at that time where there had to be like a moral lesson to
the Hays Code
things?
No. It's still,
was it the Hays Code? Am I wrong?
Well, the Hays Code basically gets neutered in 1959 when Some Like It Hot comes out.
Oh, that's true.
So, like, I can't remember if 63 at the Hays, the movie picture code, if that specifically is still actually in operation, or I can't remember the date when they switch over to the new system, but it's like on its way out by this point. That does not mean there's not censorship bullshit going on. Right. I don't want to give that impression, but like the strength that you see in like the mid to late 30s, that is not
there.
No.
If anything, they were kind of doing the reverse, was they were putting things into the foreign market cuts of the movie that they left out of the Italian cuts.
Yeah, because Bonnie and Clyde's 1967, and Bonnie and Clyde basically kills off what we think of as what's left of the Hays Code. Because Bonnie and Clyde like brings in like the American Renaissance of film, like American New Wave, quote unquote. So
I will say
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I would say that I don't disagree with what Shaun is saying, but I think the idea that maybe what blanking on Freda, what Riccardo Freda was doing is that you have the priest earlier in the film and has that pivotal scenes where he's talking to them, and then he comes back at the end. Why is he absent in between? My interpretation is that in between points that's really where, symbolically at least, all the characters are now dead. And in some ways, they are trapped in a house that is symbolic of hell. They're turning on each other. They're completely depraved by this point. And this is a point where there is no, because it's hell, there is no morality. There is no such figure that can be there. And it's only until the end, and they have actually now succumbed fully, that figure can come back and sort of look on to the hell that has existed. That's the best I can kind of say, but I don't know if that's...
I wish they would have leaned into that more, because I kind of agree and disagree with Shaun in that I agree that it was weird because really we have 4 characters, right? Catherine the maid, Livingston, and the wife and the husband. And then you got those are our characters throughout the movie. And then you've got the priest that comes in, and then you've got the
mayor.
Was it the mayor or the constable?
There's a constable that shows up, there's a mayor, and then there's another doctor, I think.
That kind of shows up. Which the constable had my favorite line in the whole movie, which is that you're taking medicine. Medicine is just nonsense. And he tries to convince him not to do any medicine. But I think not to get off my point is that, we have I wish the movie would have either just focused on those characters and everybody else done much more surreally, in the way you're describing, or at least flesh out a little bit. Maybe not have so many, but kind of just have them actually mean something, right? Because the constable or the guy talking crap about medicine, that could have been a whole piece of it. The stuff the priest said really doesn't tie into the rest of the movie other than you mess with seance, you're going to get screwed. And then at the end, he's like, look, you got screwed. And like Shaun mentioned earlier, it had nothing to do with the seance. Right. These characters, their pieces really had no bearing on the movie at all. You could completely remove them, keep our 4, and everything would just...
And it would be tighter,
be fine.
Yeah. We hadn't mentioned the cinematographer. The screenwriter for this is actually the screenwriter or novelist for The Bicycle Thieves, which is one of the most famous pieces of Italian. I still have not seen it, but it's ranked often one of the best films ever made and one of the most influential movies ever made. So the guy who wrote this is a really big deal. The fact that there's this... And in Italy at the time, this was normal, where people in, quote, high culture and people in sort of the low genre culture, they were intermixing. And so Barbara Steele talks about working with Fellini and things like that. And so the big name Italian directors were also considering and watching the works of Freda and Mario Bava and getting ideas. And so there was much more cross speaking between sort of the divides of culture in that era. But the script writer, he was a playwright. The reason why I got on this tangent was he was actually mainly a playwright. And this is very much, I think, originally written almost like a stage play. And having, just like you said, DanDan, of just having it sort of focused in on those 4 characters might have been closer to what he originally was envisioning in a version he wrote. I haven't read the original script, but I imagine it was much more sort of narratively and thematically focused, with that history of writing stage plays.
I could see that.
Shaun looks skeptical.
I have nothing to add to that. Sorry. I don't know that I could say anything intelligent after that.
I will say there were some writing choices other than medicine is nonsense. There were some writing choices I didn't fully or not writing, creation story, right? When they pulled the bullets out of the wall, perfectly shaped, obviously never been fired. Nobody mentions it. The blood never gets checked again. But also the big tell that she has that he must have gotten into the safe and stolen everything is the guy's favorite snuff box, which was in the safe. And I'll be honest, I'm a tobacco user. I smoke, not snuff. But I can tell you that nobody who's addicted to nicotine enough to have a favorite snuff box is locking our addiction away in a safe that we have to run to our desk to get the key, to run to the safe, to run back. Like, that's not how these things work. Like, I was just like, how is this to tell?
He has to like hide his gin behind the books, right? I'm surprised he didn't also have the snuff case behind the books and the bookcase with everything else.
Which actually was the original tagline I wanted to use, but then I kind of talked myself out of it, which is gin is the real medicine. Because like so many times, as soon as the doctor's done doing his stuff with him and the doctor leaves, he's like, give me some gin. And that was a really, really uncomfortable scene when he was having the maid pour it and he's like, more. And they're just like looking at each other they did not like each other.
No, but that also is a weird POV problem for the story, because we learn at the end that the maid and him have been working together for this plot. And he tells us at the end that actually he'd already started to be cured of his ailment a long time. So he's been pretending to be more infirmed than he actually is. Which would imply that he actually is very well in the scene where he's asking the maid for her to pour him a gin. And yet the scene plays it off as though it's not. So it's very much a trick on the audience. But I don't like,
the
I'll be honest.
The character should know.
I'm not a big fan of when films do that, where they have characters behave in ways just to trick the audience. But it is only like one scene that we don't really get any others where that would be the case. So I'll kind of give it, a break on that. But it is a weird choice because it's very clear that the film is constantly trying to hide from us what's really going on. Especially since the images we're shown of the sort of horror elements of this story are images that we would absolutely associate with the supernatural, and really sort of raise many questions for how exactly this old man who is still semi-infirm because he walks with a cane at the end, and this maid who is not exactly a spring chicken have put on all of these affairs, like bullets in walls and like blood coming out of the wall. Like, okay, I can kind of get that. But there's a scene where the Livingston hears noise, like goes up to check on the blood that's coming through the wall, and he's trying to open this room, and the door won't close, right, or won't open all the way. So he's like pushing with everything he's got to see. We see the shadow, it's the shadow of Dr. Hitchcock. It basically hung right on a noose, and then we get a brief glimpse of the image of him hanging, and we get a couple of other kinds of images of that where the doctor is alive and is in situations which I gotta know, how the hell did the guy pull it off? Because the film doesn't tell us, right? But it very clearly wants to trick us to think that this is absolutely supernatural. Which makes the twist at the end my favorite part of the whole film, because once the twist happens, you're like, oh, you sneaky son of a bitch. You really pulled that off.
So that whole aspect...
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, the hanging scene, like he's literally like pushing against the door. The door, for whatever reason, pushes back against him. And there's literally like 2 or 3 seconds from that moment where he just gets the door open enough, sees the guy hanging, door closes, and then he hammers it open. So in like 2 or 3 seconds, the guy got the noose off of himself, got down from the noose, and hid. And like you said, he was still with a cane.
Yeah.
He wasn't moving super fast.
That sort of aspect of it is something I really love, given its setting. In 1910, which is the height of like the spiritualist craze. And, you know, like in a lot of the documentaries, they talk about sort of like Arthur Conan Doyle, and his fascination with it is right at the same time period in Scotland. And so they kind of speculated that Riccardo Freda is sort of using that as a lot of influence for this movie of Conan Doyle's experiences with spiritualism. And I think back to like, you know, modern day magicians and like Penn and Teller who do routines that are based on how spiritualists used to like pull the wool over, you know, the eyes of people that were involved with it. And they're like, well, how did they do that? And so the fact that this movie plays with that of like fooling the audience in terms of like the characters in the movie with these things in a way that's not about the spiritualist sessions they have at the beginning, but this whole, you know, convoluted plan to end up with these two lovers to basically kill each other, get rid of each other, I think is kind of a cool idea.
I will say that his whole I'm tricking everybody stuff did lead to one confusion I had, because he said that he changed out the antidote and the poison to fool the doctor. So when the doctor brought that, like for this time period, I'm sure for that time period it was just standard, but for this time period, like comically large syringe and needle. And he pulls it out of the bottle and then he shoots him up. And then, so the guy says, right, all that's faked. I faked it. All it's there to do is like make me seem dead, not actually kill me. Well, that's the poison she was going to use to kill herself and supposedly kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I don't know if unless they're different bottles. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, you didn't know? You know the answer?
You don't know the answer?
What is the answer?
The house was killing them all along.
The house. It was the house all along.
Yeah.
No, it's probably just one of those things where, you know, you're so interested in the twist that when they were writing it, they didn't like pull out the diagram of like, well, where's all the pieces? Like, yeah.
Yeah. I will say that for somebody who wants her husband dead, like she spends 20 minutes at the beginning of the movie keeping him from dying while he's begging her to kill him. Like she stops her from shooting himself. She like gets on him about all this different stuff to be like, oh, you know, trying to save him, while at the same time planning his murder. Like, let the dude shoot himself. Or
well, but he knows
whatever.
that she won't, right? And like he gets his own petty revenge in another way, which is, you know, obviously he's going to leave something for his wife, because it'd be really weird if you don't. But like, he deliberately gives most of his fortune over to an orphanage, right?
Yeah.
Because he knows it's going to drive them mad.
And the only bit they're going to get is the bit they can't find. Yeah.
Right, exactly. The one bit they can't find. The one guy, I can't remember, is it the mayor or whatever, who's just like, I must see you open the safe entirely. You must find the key.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we don't know where the key is. And they're like, I'll just come back later. And he never comes back later. Right? They're never
I thought that was
find
so
nothing.
weird. I really did think it was super weird when they were like, well, if you don't have the key, before we can like force the door open, we have to call the magistrate to come and we'll come and watch. And I'm like, it's my goddamn safe. Like,
yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Why do we need all these special people flown in just so I break it open? Like, how's that different from just getting a key? Right? Yeah.
It's because of the divvying up of the, because like they don't specify, only give my stuff that's in this thing to those people and this stuff over here to them.
Right.
It's like 2/3 of all of my wealth goes to the orphanage and this priest who once accused me of devil worship. And then 1/3 of my stuff goes to you. But we're not going to talk about exactly where the third is coming from. So it like is deliberately. So when they open the safe, it's like, well, yeah, they do have to know what's in the safe, because what if there's extra stuff? Like 2/3 of that is going to the orphanage. Right. It turns out it's just papers,
right.
But you know, the orphanage doesn't care about papers. The orphans can't write.
And who keeps all their wealth in jewels? Like, this dude's like ultra wealthy. Like, he tells her it's so much wealth. What did he say? It's so much wealth you can't even imagine or have never dreamed of. I forget his exact line. But then, like, it's just all in jewelry. He does say there's some bonds, which I'd have been looking through those papers to see if any of those were bonds. But yeah, jewelry and bonds and some currency. But who keeps all their, like, what is he up?
The maid kept all the the bonds and just threw the jewelry in Livingston's bag.
The joke's on you. It's all in American pennies, which have now been discontinued.
Yeah.
Oh, Lordy.
So the American names.
Yeah, go on.
The really white bread names. So my understanding is at the period, they're really trying to make an Italian horror film genre of their own that is it's inspired by lots of other things, including, of course, the Hammer horror films from Britain, but making them a little more edgier and more overtly depraved. And also the films of Roger Corman. And so in some ways they like the Edgar Allan Poe movies that Corman made, for instance. And they were trying to recreate and make these sorts of Hollywood films that they could export to American audiences. And at least mostly the understanding I've gotten from watching episodes of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs and Joe Bob talking about this is they'd put on these American sounding names because they thought at the time that no American would go to a drive-in to see a movie with a bunch of Italian names on it, because Italian names were things for like Fellini and highfalutin art house films. And so if you're making a picture like Roger Corman for the drive-in for a more lowbrow audience, you don't want to have like a bunch of Italian names on there. You want to make it look like this movie was shot in England. And it was a bunch of English and American actors and things like that. And so they did everything to put those on. I don't remember the movie, but there was one of the movies on Last Drive-In, the cemetery, The House by the Cemetery, I think is the title of it. Joe Bob said when he originally saw the movie and reviewed it, he had no idea it was even an Italian movie because it was just all American names, etc. And he didn't know any better at the time. And so that's, I think, exactly what they were going for then, too.
Yeah.
I think that mentality is stuck, like it's stuck around. I mean, a lot of people are like, ooh, it's a French, right? Ooh, it's a foreign film, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that mentality is still around.
Yeah. And everyone who has that mentality has never been to a Bollywood film.
Yeah, correct.
No.
Because if you're thinking, I'm not an insult to Bollywood films, but like Bollywood films are fun, right? They're oftentimes very flamboyant, ridiculous. And so if you go to one and you're thinking, oh, this must be highfalutin art house, like they're going to cook an egg and then like read Descartes to you. No, that's not what you're going to get. What you're going to get is an elaborate dance number.
And the robot is like one of the best movies out there. Hold on here.
Yeah.
I want to see that movie now. Cooking an egg
while someone explains Descartes to you. Yeah. Reading in the original language, you know. Yeah. It's my I think I got that from Family Guy, but I think Family Guy got it from someone else. But like the student film, but like we're being super high literary. We're doing like really incredible, and it's like black and white, and it's just like a woman in a room at a table, staring at you, and then she flips an egg, and then someone like says like, you know, Chanel number 5 or some like stupid thing, right?
Or just get it narrated by Werner Herzog. No matter what you're showing, just have Werner Herzog speaking in the background.
Werner Herzog can narrate anything. I don't care. He can narrate the lives of gorillas. I don't care.
Yes.
Good Lord. Don't you insult the memory of the name of Werner Herzog.
Oh, Herzog is great.
He's astonishing. I love his documentaries. His documentaries are very interesting. If you're at all interested, he has one about Siberian fur traders, which I forget the title of, and I watched out of nowhere, and he narrates that thing, and it made something that I didn't think was going to be that interesting, like utterly fascinating. And I was like, okay, I could see why you're really into this right now. Mm-hmm. Yes, please show me them walking in the snow while you narrate this.
Yeah, he could narrate, you know, like footage of people doing laundry or like cutting hair, and it would just be utterly fascinating and engrossing.
It would be. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. You should watch Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe. If you've never seen that film. Literally, he eats a shoe. Well, he didn't eat the whole thing.
Oh.
But I think folks would be very interested in it because it's him. Partly it's a joke, and partly it is like he lost a bet. And so that's why he has to like boil this shoe and he's going to eat it. But part of what he does in the film is he talks about what we lose when film becomes sort of overly popularized. The sort of like blockbuster era that was like coming around the corner. I really recommend it. There's a lot more to it. It kind of gives you a sense of his philosophy of film, at least at the time. And, at the core is a ridiculous thing. He's literally boiling a shoe that he's going to eat at a theater because he lost a bet. And then there's all this like film philosophy around it. And so there is like something very Herzog about the very setup of what we're watching. It is absurdity and intelligence at the same time.
I do like absurdity.
Me too. Well, we got to wrap up, guys. We did a film.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to talk about how he was evil.
Oh.
Who was the most evil?
He was
the husband.
He was evil. That if you want to watch the previous Freda movie, The Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, he's even more horrible in that. I still need to watch this one, but apparently he's a doctor that practices necrophilia. And in contrast to this one, Barbara Steele, the wife, is much more timid and basically he's controlling her as opposed to her trying to get revenge on him. So she's much less of a power figure in that one, I think. But the maid is also the same actress, is the maid also in the Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, but it's a different actor playing Dr. Hitchcock. So
but
yeah,
the wife and the maid are the same?
The wife and the maid are the same.
Oh.
Interesting.
So yeah, as horrible as this Dr. Hitchcock was, can still be more horrible.
He's kind of all right.
Yeah. No. She was all right. He was evil.
She plotted to murder him.
Yeah, because he made her.
No, he didn't.
He was controlling her.
How?
He kept begging her to die. And
she wanted her independence. Over,
yeah,
but she's
being all controlling.
Okay. She didn't, mercy kill him. She wanted to kill him to take his wealth so she could be with her lover.
People are complex creatures. Humans are complex, multifaceted creatures. Yeah, she did what she had to do to get her freedom. Because you think about it, he could have divorced her and he would have kept everything. If she had divorced him, she'd have been broke on the street, penniless. Murder was the only option.
Did they have that? Could you get divorced in 1910 Scotland?
Oh, probably not.
Oh, I don't know. They might have, probably not. Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe you could get divorced, in a legal perspective, but almost certainly
he's rich,
not.
So probably could do whatever he wanted. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he could have as many mistresses as he wants.
I don't know if she could have done anything that she wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could kill him.
Okay. This show is not advocating that a way to get out of a marriage you don't want to be in is to murder your significant other.
All I'm going to say is the life expectancy of men went up significantly when women got permission to divorce them.
Wow. Okay.
And sales of Carrara went down.
All right, we're going to pause right now and move right to the end of this show. All right, folks.
Fine.
This is the show. If you have thoughts about this episode, this film, etc., skiffyandfanty@gmail.com. You can send us an email, or if you are in our Discord, there's a whole bunch of different channels for discussing various things, and so you could discuss it there. We are on all kinds of socials, Blue Sky Threads, Mastodon, YouTube, etc. at skiffyandfanty.com/skiffythings. There's links to all of that there. And then every Friday, or pretty much every Friday of the year at 7 p.m. Central, we will be live at twitch.tv/alphabetstreams for the live version of the show, which this show was recorded live, so you could do that. And then if you have money that you don't need for housing, food, getting medication, feeding your children, etc., and you are inclined to give it to people because they entertain you, please consider going to patreon.com/giphyinfanty and give us whatever you're comfortable with. $1 is the minimum, but you could give us also 10,000 and I could retire. So there is that. Actually,
or give it all to orphans.
You could give it 2/3 to orphans and 1/3 to us. That is true. 10,000, actually, I couldn't actually do this full time because I'd have to split this with all of you guys. So you'd probably have to do a lot more. So maybe just get more people to join. And then we could all just do this for a living. There you go. So with that in mind, thanks to all our Patreon supporters. We have Adam the Adventurous, the recent new supporter. Thank you, Adam. Andrea the Abiding, Cameron the Chthonic, Caroline the Benevolent, Carrie the Divine, Chris the Candescent, DanDan the Transient, Daniel the Cultured, David the Debonair, Erica the Esteemed, Jeff the Gracious, Joseph the Jovial, Juan the Junctional, and KB the Kind.
Karen the Kick-Ass, Kat the Kinematic, Matthew the Magnificent, Paul the Pious, Robert the Reliable, Robin the Bold, Ryan the Resilient, Sarah A. the Sensational, Sarah E. the Sublime, Sarah O. the Rapturous, Stephen the Strange, Terry the Thorough, Tari the Thorough, Tanya Tari. Oh, I got it right the first time. I shouldn't have doubted myself. Tanya the Triumphant, Trish the Imperturbable.
All right, and you can find me, ShaunDuke.net, put /Duke things on that. You'll find all my socials and links. I am also here on Alphabet Streams every Wednesday and Sunday at 6 p.m. Central for various games and other kinds of things. And yeah, I think that's all you need to know about me.
You can find me, Daniel, at Reading 1000 Lives. That's 1000 on Blue Sky, or at the skiffyinfanty blog.
I am on yourorchard.co as my blog, and I have short stories on there. Plus, I'm on several social medias, specifically Blue Sky, as The Transient. And if you were a gamer, I game under the handle Drunken Garbage.
Nice. Well, perfect. I gotta make it hopeful. So,
actually, right before you do that, just one last mention. Again, thank you to Severin.
Thank you
for
very much,
sending
Severin.
this.
Yeah.
And the visuals on this, I think we made it clear you want to get a good copy of this if you decide you want to watch this, which I do encourage.
Excellent.
All right, make it hopeful.
Well, I'll make it hopeful by just pointing out that even though the world seems like a nightmare zone from hell inside of the rectal anus of another nightmare zone from hell, there are boutique Blu-ray companies doing remasters and revitalizations of older films and things that we want to watch and things that we want to enjoy and things that we want to collect and so on and so forth. That includes places like Severin and Deaf Crocodile, who've been kind enough to send us films, and many, many other boutique places. And so if you care about physical media, there's where you can get your joy. And that is my hopeful message to you. So, on that note, hopeful ending and scene.